How are y'all doing today? Let's try that again. How are y'all doing today? Good. A few years ago, I realized our country was headed in the wrong direction. I realized our country was headed down a path of more government and less freedom, of more government programs and less prosperity, more tyranny and less liberty. I realized I had to get involved. John Adams once said, there are two ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword, and the other is by debt. Today, our nation faces a $17.5 trillion debt, and it's climbing at an unprecedented rate. Today in the United States, the average American works until April 21st to pay off their taxes. That means from January 1st till just a few days ago, you and I worked as servants of the government. This year alone, Americans will spend more on taxes than they spend on food, clothing, and housing combined. Friends, Washington, D.C. doesn't have a revenue problem. Washington, D.C. has a spending problem. In the book of Proverbs, it talks about the borrower being slave to the lender. Our generation and generations yet to be born are going to be faced with crippling debt. We the people have to start sending new leaders to Washington that won't kick the can down the road, that will stand strong against special interests and party insiders. There's a guy I've supported in this Senate race here in Kansas, and I hope you do too. I'd like you to welcome to the stage Dr. Milton Wolf.
Hey guys, how are you tonight? Hey listen, first of all, I just got to say a huge thank you. There is nothing more valuable that you have than your time, and that you would give your time to be here tonight. And I know you're not here for me individually. I know you're here for our country, and that's why I'm here too. And first of all, I want to start out before I say anything and just say thank you. I want you to join me and say thank you to the Tea Party Express. Now look, you guys have probably been paying attention to this campaign. You know, there's been a lot of accusations been thrown around. They've said a lot of things about me, and I want to just get one thing out in the open. I want to be clear about one thing. In fact, I want to confess one thing to you today. What they say about me is true. Barack Obama and I are cousins. But I'm here to tell you that you cannot choose your family. What you can do is you can choose to rise up and stop your family from destroying America. And that's what I think Barack Obama and his policies are doing. And that's why I'm running for the United States Senate, to put a stop to Barack Obama. Now look, it's nothing personal. I just think Barack Obama is the worst president in our lifetimes. In fact, I think he may be the worst president in our history. You know, you remember, I don't try to make it my business to explain him away or try to even understand him. But you remember when he called all of us bitter clingers, and we bitterly cling to our God and our guns and our hatred towards others. Well, I want you to know that not everybody in the family thinks like that. As for me, I love the Lord our God. My firearm of choice is the Ruger SR 556. And I have hatred towards no man, only towards bad government that destroys our freedom and destroys our future. You know, it was a day not too different from today, a while ago, in fact almost 250 years ago, that a parliament decided it would impose a tax on its subjects. And by today's standards, it was a minuscule tax. It was tiny. We know it in the history books as the Stamp Act. But from that moment arose a movement that we still feel today. And it was the Sons of Liberty that stood up. And while the politicians were toiling in the state houses, it was we the people, it was the citizens that took to the streets. It was the Sons of Liberty that took to the streets. And in fact, we are their heirs. Today, we are the sons and the daughters of liberty. We are the ones who will take our country back. Now look, I want to tell you something. I am a doctor. I am not a politician. I have never run for office before. I do not want a career in politics. I'd rather practice medicine than politics. But our country is in trouble. Our country is in deep trouble because Washington has let us down. They have forgotten their place as servant rather than master. Now I have been a Republican all my life, and I have been loyal to our party. But the problem is our party has not been loyal to its own principles. Our party has failed us. That is why I'm running. Now I'll tell you something, the career politicians in Washington, they all say the same thing. The career Republican politicians say, we just need to elect more Republicans. We just need more people with R's behind their name, and everything will be right with the world. Now they must think we're fools. They must think that we don't remember the 2000s because we tried it their way and it failed miserably. You know, America entrusted our country, America entrusted our party, the Republicans, with the leadership of this country. They gave the Republicans the White House and the House of Representatives and the United States Senate and even the United States Supreme Court. And what did we get in return? They gave us the largest expansion of government in our nation's history until this guy Barack Obama came along. They gave us the largest growth in spending, the largest growth in the debt. They gave us no bureaucrat left behind for our schools. They gave us the largest expansion of Medicare in the program's history. They even banned the light bulb. And these were the Republicans. These were the people who today call themselves conservatives. And I'm telling you, we cannot go down that path again. I'm tired of losing to Democrats, but I'm even more tired of Republicans who act like Democrats. Now I'm challenging Senator Pat Roberts in this primary, and it's nothing personal. Like most of you, I suspect, I have voted for him. In fact, I have voted for him for as long as I can remember. I think that's part of the problem. You know, Pat Roberts has been in Washington for 47 years. I don't think anybody should be in Washington for 47 years. I don't think Moses himself should be in Washington for 47 years. God expected him to get things straightened out in 40. But you know what? I'll tell you, it shows. When somebody's been in Washington too long, they forget who they are, they forget why they went there, they forget who they were supposed to represent, and then they vote the way Pat Roberts votes. And it's nothing personal. I think this race should be about his record and my vision. And his record is what is on trial today. You know, about a year ago, Pat Roberts voted for Barack Obama's $600 billion fiscal cliff tax hike. That affected 80% of Kansas. Pat Roberts voted to raise our debt ceiling, not once or twice, but 11 different times. And since he's been in Washington, that debt has gone from $340 billion, which is a solvable problem, to $17 trillion, which threatens our economy today and our children's future tomorrow. But I'll tell you the one that probably gets me the most, because as a doctor, I see the effect of this on my patients. I see the effect of this in the hospitals. Pat Roberts voted to put Kathleen Sebelius in charge of Obamacare. Now I want to see by a show of hands, I ask people all over the state of Kansas, if you were in the United States Senate, would you vote to put Kathleen Sebelius in charge of Obamacare? No! I've never seen a single hand go up. You know, I think there's a reason why he did that. You and I know that Kathleen Sebelius has been an absolute disaster in Washington. That's it. That's it. Those of us who actually live in Kansas know that she was an absolute disaster in Kansas. And if Pat Roberts actually lived in Kansas, he would have known that too. Now to tell you, Pat Roberts did not live in Kansas for the 18 years before he moved to Washington. He's living today in his home of Alexandria, Virginia, that he purchased in 1975. That is his home. The first address he used when he ran for the United States Congress was a vacant lot in Dodge City, Kansas. He has never lived in this town he calls his hometown of Dodge City, Kansas. He comes to our state today, and he says that he owns a home in Kansas, but he's not telling you the full story. He owns a rental property in Kansas. He does not live there. Kansans live in that home. He is the landlord, not the resident. And you know what he's done? As soon as I got in the race, he knew he had a problem. He knew he had a residency problem. In October of 2013, not until October of 2013, after the man had been in Washington for 47 years, he started renting a room from a donor on a golf course in Dodge City, and he calls it his home. And I'll tell you what, he thinks it's a joke. A reporter asked him about it and said, how can you possibly be doing this? And his response, and I quote here, his response was, I have full access to the recliner. No, I'm sorry. Article 1, Section 3 of the United States Constitution is no joke. It is no laughing matter that a United States senator should be an inhabitant of the state they're from. That's not too much to ask, is it? But I want to warn you, if this kind of stuff is okay with you, I am not your man. Don't vote for me. If you think things are going great in Washington, I am not your man. Don't vote for me. I think that Washington has so many problems that if we don't get it right and get it right now, our country is in deep, deep trouble. Washington devours 25% of our economy. They take away a quarter of your work. Washington has created a $17 trillion debt that is unconscionable. I mean, you know, our federal government has become the country's largest employer, consumer, our largest debtor, our largest creditor, our largest health insurer, our largest health care provider, and they do not trust you to choose your own light bulbs or how much water your toilet can flush. You know, our founders had a dream of America, and this is not it. But I got to tell you something. I'm not here today to curse at the darkness. I'm here to light candles because I believe there is a way. I believe there is a solution. I believe we have a roadmap, and it's called the United States Constitution. You see, this race is so much bigger than Pat Roberts. Look, the best he can say after 47 years in Washington, he owns the problems in Washington. He cannot run against the problems in Washington, and the best he can say is that he has been ineffective at solving those problems in Washington. But this race is so much bigger than Pat Roberts. This race is about the heart and soul of our country. This race is whether we will find people who will stand up and fight. I think we need fewer career politicians, and I believe we need senators who will fight. I believe we need more senators like Ted Cruz, and like Mike Lee, and like Rand Paul. You know, I have stood toe-to-toe with this president, Barack Obama, and I have looked him in the eye, and I have told him that he's wrong. And I knew when I did that I would pay a price, and I surely have. I've been harassed. My family has been harassed. Wow. They sent the IRS after us to harass us. You realize that the IRS, in fact, ended up, after going through months of arbitration, paid us an interest penalty and still couldn't explain what their problem was. They sent the IRS after us to audit my business, and then the White House even tried to get me fired. Now, I'll tell you something, all that served to do was fire me up. I will not back down from Barack Obama. I will not back down from Pat Roberts. I will not back down from Mitch McConnell. I will not back down from Harry Reid. We need to stand up and fight. You know that I oppose government-run health care, and I oppose it not just because it's bad medicine. It is. And not just because it's bad economics. It's that too. But I oppose government-run health care because it's immoral. I believe it's immoral for the government to get between you and your doctor. I believe it's immoral for the government to decide who shall live and who shall die. And they do that. Do you remember Kathleen Sebelius said in judgment of that young girl needing the lung transplant? Sarah Murnigan is her name. And she said no, the young girl would not get the lung transplant that would save her life. And Kathleen Sebelius' response under oath when asked about it, she said, and I quote, "Someone lives and someone dies." Well, I think it's immoral for Kathleen Sebelius to decide who shall live and who shall die. I believe our tax code is not just bad economic policy and not just bad fiscal policy. I believe it is immoral. I believe it is immoral for our government to choose winners and losers among us. I believe it is immoral for our government to use a 74,000-page code to coerce you into doing their bidding. And that is why I oppose the IRS. That is why I want to dismantle the IRS brick by brick. That is why I want to institute the fair tax. And that is why I want to be the one who hangs the going out of business sign on the front door of the IRS. I want you to imagine an America where a healthcare system cares more about its patients than its politicians. I want you to imagine an America with a tax code where, like the fair tax, finally we all play by the same set of rules. I want you to imagine an America with an education system where parents and teachers call the shots, not politicians and bureaucrats. I want you to imagine an America with an energy policy where we unleash America's energy instead of driving up gas prices. I want you to imagine an America with an agriculture policy where we finally let farmers get out from underneath the thumb of the EPA. I want you to imagine an America where we finally re-embrace the Constitution, where we re-embrace that divinely inspired American idea itself of individual liberty, limited government, and free market values. I want you to imagine that America, but I want you to work for it too. You know, they say that throughout history, people get the leaders they deserve. Barack Obama is a problem, but he is not the problem. He's the symptom of the problem. The problem is that we haven't been doing our job as Americans. You know, our founders had a vision of America where we would be the sovereign citizens, where we would be we the people, where we would loan power to Washington. And instead, we've watched a Washington that has devoured our country. We have got to step up, and that's why I'm here today. Look, I don't need this. I would rather practice medicine than politics. Carrie and I are newly empty nesters, and I'll tell you what, if there is ever a great time in life, it's being an empty nester. Can I get an amen? I don't need this. I don't need the kind of insults they hurl my way. You know, since I've gotten in this race, Pat Roberts has spent $1 million. He hasn't been able to find a single issue that he says I'm wrong on. He hasn't been able to run on his 47-year record of raising taxes and raising debt ceilings and Kathleen Sebelius. So all he can do is attack me personally. That's all he's got. That's because he is in and of Washington. And it's okay. Look, I'll be grateful if you'll say a prayer for me and for my campaign. But don't worry about me. I've got thick skin. I am here to fight. I will not back down to Pat Roberts, and I will not back down to Barack Obama. I will not back down to the Democrats, the media, or anyone else. I am not going to Washington to try to make 99 friends. I believe in the Ted Cruz philosophy. I'm going to Washington to kick in the doors, rip down the drapes, and auction off the silver and the china. If we don't solve these problems today, then our country's in trouble. Look, I wouldn't do this except for the fact that I have to look my kids in the eyes. I'm willing to get out in front, and I'm willing to take their arrows. I'm willing to take their personal and petty insults. I'm willing to take their wrath so that my kids don't have to, and so that your kids don't have to. What you're witnessing today is what happens if somebody dares to step up against a political machine. And I'm okay with it. I'm fine. I think our country is worth fighting for. I gotta tell you something. You know, I'm a doctor. I think if we don't make the right diagnosis, we're not gonna solve this problem. And there's a reason why Washington is spending money we don't have. There's a reason why Pat Roberts votes for Kathleen Sebelius. There's a reason why Pat Roberts votes to raise our debt ceiling 11 times. There's a reason why Pat Roberts spends like there's no tomorrow. It's because they've given up on tomorrow. You know, we don't just have an economic crisis here. We don't even have just have a spending crisis here. When a country spends trillions of dollars that are yet to be earned by a generation yet to be born, that's no longer just an economic or spending crisis. It's a moral crisis, and we need to solve it today. You know, a few thousand years ago, Moses said to the Israelites, pick up your shovels, Mount your asses and your camels, and I will lead you to the promised land. About a century ago, FDR and the Democrats said, put down your shovels, sit on your asses, light up your camels. This is the promised land. But today it's gotten even worse. Barack Obama and the Democrats and the GOP of yesterday, they've regulated your shovels, they've taxed your asses, they've banned the camels, and they've destroyed the promised land. It's time we take our country back. Now look, I'm here today because I'm asking you to join me. I would never be so presumptuous and ask you to stand up for me. I would never do that. I'm not in here for a career in politics. I think we need term limits. I have limited myself to 2 terms, and I will not serve longer. And while I serve, I will continue to practice medicine here in Kansas because that is my life calling. That's who I want to be, and I never want to lose the grounding that I have. And when I'm done, when my mission is complete, then I will come home and practice medicine full-time in Kansas again. And I believe my mission is twofold, by the way. Number 1, save the Republican Party from itself. And number 2, save the Republic from the Democrats. So I'm asking for your help. I'll never ask you to stand up for me, but I will ask you to stand up for the Constitution. And I'll ask you to stand up for that American idea itself. And it's not enough to just vote. It's not enough even to come to rallies and spend your time. We have actually got to get to work. We're going to win this election. I wouldn't be in it if I didn't believe it. We're going to win this election one doorstep at a time. I want you to join this army of Davids. I want you to join the wolf pack. I want you to step over to these guys wearing the wolf t-shirts over by the trailer and sign up. In your neighborhood, you can walk doors. If you want to just leave door hangers on a door, do it. If you want to knock and talk to your neighbors, do it. We want your help. And again, it's not to stand up for me, but it's to stand up for our country. If we don't take our country back, if we don't start acting like the sovereign citizens we were meant to be, if we don't start acting like the sons and daughters of liberty, then we're going to lose this country. It may still say that word America on a map, but we won't still be our country. We've got to take this country back. We have got to win this today. Now I'll tell you something. You know I'm willing to fight. You know I'm willing to take on the barbs, the personal insults, and everything else. But I do believe that history is on the move. I do believe that something has gone afoot. That our leaders in Washington, that the career politicians are deathly afraid of, and it is you. You know, I got a phone call from a historian. His name's Larry Schweiker. He's a well-known historian, wrote the Patriots' History of the United States. If you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend you do. And he said, you know, there's never been anything like this in American history. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we've had family dynasties in politics from the beginning of America, from the Adams to the Clintons, from the Kennedys to the Bushes. But you're running against, you're running for office, and in the White House is your cousin. And between the two of you, you are diametrically opposed. You have two diametrically opposed worldviews. I believe in freedom, and he believes in government power. And he said, there's never been anything like this in American history. You're about to see the first family rivalry in American national politics, and it's going to be between a president and a senator. And I said, you know, then I'm going to launch the mother of all family feuds. Hey, look, I realize that every Goliath story seeks its David, but this is something so much more. This is an army of Davids. You are the army of Davids, and we will not go silently in the night. We will not back down. We can change this Congress. We can change Washington. With the righteous winds of liberty at our backs, we can even change the world. But we've got to get involved. We've got to get off the sidelines. This cannot be a spectator sport. I need you. You need us. We need to be involved together. We have got to take on these Goliaths, every single one of them. The reason they're so scared today, they're scared of we the people. And they're right to be scared of we the people. When we stand together, we stand strong, and we stand for our country. I thank you guys for being here tonight. I hope you will sign up and join the Wolf Pack. I hope you will join this army of Davids. Step over here, get involved, sign up, make a contribution if you can. $5,000 if you've got it. $5 if you've got it. Put your name in the history books. Join this fight. join us. We'll take back our country, and we will realize that American dream. Thank you very much. God bless you. May God bless America, and through your works, may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.